Upfront and Outspoken with Bob Williams. If you love the Constitution,
man is not free unless government is limited.
If you love freedom,
as government expands, liberty contracts.
If you believe in personal responsibility, if you believe America is still the greatest nation on earth, then get ready for an experience you'll never forget. This is Upfront and Outspoken. Here's your host, Bob Williams.
Some folks are born made to wave the flag. Ooh, they're red, white, and blue.
And welcome back. This is, of course, Upfront Outspoken. I'm your host, Bob Williams, with you here on this Wednesday. And it is indeed going to be a hectic hour. What can I tell you? Coming to me via Skype is a very concerned citizen. And I want to say that in the best of ways. Why is he concerned? He's a private investigator. Now, you're asking me, Bob, why the hell did I bring on a private investigator? The simple fact is, guess what, Savannah? You guys got issues over there, and I mean some severe issues. So joining me now via Skype is John Perry. Good morning, John. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Bob. I'm glad to be here.
Now, what got me involved in this is, I shouldn't say yesterday, but on Monday, Murray Silver, he's running for mayor, came on my program, and he brought up something, he made an accusation that there is corruption within Savannah, and I'm going to say it, generally, because it not only affects right up to the mayor's office, but down to the lowest levels as well. And I have a 4-minute soundbite here that I'm going to air, but I want you to kind of introduce it. You told me that this particular segment actually got you involved in finding out the corruption going on in Savannah. So you want to kind of introduce this?
Yeah, Bob. The man you're going to play, his name is Josh Flowers. I found him kind of after the fact. I live on the south side. I live in District 6. Tony Thomas is my alderman. And I have 4 daughters, and I have a rule. If you date one of my daughters, I'm on your Facebook because I'm an investigator. I'm going to know the people. He had a young man start working for him, and he was 18, so it's something that may have been a little bit odd to have a 50-year-old man run around with an 18-year-old boy, but yeah, while it was disturbing, it didn't really raise a lot of red flags until I saw Tony was taking this boy to a National League of Cities meeting in Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm of the opinion if you're taking whoever you're with, you should do it on your own dime, not the taxpayer dime. So I went downtown and submitted an open records request, really thinking I just had a case of public corruption. And wow, I submitted that on Tuesday, I believe it was August the 15th of 2012. And things really started spiraling when Thursday, just 2 days later, I was contacted by the mayor's office asking for a physical address to send us. Well, that raised a red flag right away. I didn't want to, there's no reason when somebody submits an open records request that you need a physical address. I started asking around, and I had some troubling things going into my meeting with the mayor, that there were some accusations made about this wasn't the only boy, there was younger boys, there was worse stuff out there. So my senses were up. I was definitely sensing pushback from the mayor's office. So I didn't know what I was standing on. I thought that all I had was something maybe distasteful of a 50-year-old man running around with an 18-year-old boy on the taxpayer dime. But I started hearing there's more out there, there's more out there, there's more out there.
Well,
that's what led me to Josh.
Yeah, I don't mean to interrupt you, but let's right now let our audience listen to your comments, and this is a YouTube video, folks. I'm going to tell you this right now. It's called "No Justice for Josh." Give it a listen.
Well, I originally started looking into what I thought was a case of public corruption, of using public funds to, to engage in some unsavory activities by Tony Thomas. I uncovered multiple kids that have come forward stating that Tony Thomas sexually assaulted them. So in January, I launched a website publishing my findings and shot an interview with Josh Flowers, the one victim that was, that I actually accidentally made contact with. I didn't realize he was a victim when I first contacted him. He was willing to go on camera and tell his story. When I launched the website, I put that interview up. Within 12 hours, the district attorney was contacting us and wanting a copy of that interview. That led to the DA asking for and receiving the GBI stepping in and opening an investigation into the case. His story didn't change. When I first spoke to him and he first relayed the story, we weren't face to face. Unbeknown to him, I recorded the conversation. When we met, there's minor details that changed, but the core of the story always stayed the same. The veracity of his claims, and that was a big encouragement to me because he's recalling events from a long time ago.
What did that mean to you?
What he's telling me is true, and I need to look deeper into it.
Aggravated side of me is it's just that is to a woman what rape would be. The entire experience was definitely life-changing. It was looking back on it now, I was scared and I didn't even know it. I'm curious to see, or I wonder what my life would be like if these events hadn't happened, and where I would be in life. I've had issues with alcoholism, relationships, in the process now of separating from my wife, and all of this stuff plays into things that make you who you are, or things that have been taken from you. And it was just a bad experience. Tony's not the only one to blame. I put myself in the position, but I've come to so many different people and I've talked to so many people about it, and nobody's doing anything. And it's very disheartening. It's very discouraging.
But this guy goes, he's a member of the national, he sits on a leadership board for the National League of Cities. He represents Savannah to the entire nation. And we've known about him for years, what he's doing.
How many do you think he's molested?
Personally, I think he's right around 100. I have names for about 40.
You never really know what's going on with somebody's head. I never really knew what was going on with Tony until all these things happened. And now looking back on it, I should have just turned and ran. But there again, I think John said, highly sophisticated sexual predator. He targets weak people, which all predators do, but, he targeted weak people and the people that I knew and people that I know, at the time that all this happened, we were very weak, drugs, alcohol, some of us had home issues, and then he just reaches in and grabs you. And that's it. He won't let go. I'm fortunate that I was able to turn and run. There's some people that he's been doing this to for years, and it's very sad. They should, with the justice system, they should go before the judge and jury and let the justice system decide their fate.
All right. And at that point, I'm going to bring back John. And, John, the thing is with Josh, you also mentioned that since this has occurred, the GBI has launched an investigation against Josh. Is this correct?
Against Tony Thomas, not Josh.
Okay, against Tony Thomas. Okay. Now, earlier you had mentioned that you indeed came forward to Edna Jackson, and had requested under the Freedom of Information Act a certain documentation. And the segment I'm going to air confirms 100% with a letter that you received, I believe it was in 2012, from the Georgia Department of Law. And I want to people, because you said right out, she did something she shouldn't have been doing, but she did. I want everybody to listen to this.
I'm fine. How you doing today?
Mr. Perry?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Edna
Hi.
Jackson.
Nice
How are
to
you
meet you. I'm
doing? Hi. And who are you? Pardon?
Secretary, Mr. Secretary, he works with me.
Oh, okay. All right. I have your information
Okay.
ready for you, but please come in.
Okay.
Okay.
It's okay, just...
Now, is he working with you?
Yeah, we're working this together, yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's fine. You may have a seat. Diane? I'm right here. Okay, come on. I need you to join us, please.
Do you want us to open it?
You can leave it open.
Okay.
Did you want the young man in
No,
here?
he's fine.
Okay. All right. We have the information that you have requested from Mr. Tone from our office.
Right.
I wanted to explain to you that any alderman and myself that travel, that I'm responsible for that travel. So what we have done, you have asked for certain dates.
Right.
And those dates, you asked for, there was no correlation, but I'm going to give you where he was during those time frames.
Right, yeah, well, I asked for a general, 4-month period, along with any travel during that 4-month period.
Right.
Not a specific day.
Now, we're going to give you specific of where he was located.
Okay.
On any trips that he has taken with the city.
Okay.
And you will have with you, and let me show you this.
Excellent. I like when I get more than I ask for. I appreciate that.
Well, but you're going to have to give me something. This is the first time that we have ever had a request directly, since I've been in office, and I've been in office 13 years. Requesting information directly from a private investigator as it pertains. Now, Ms. Reese is the clerk of council, and usually those kind of things would come through the clerk of council's office, but it did not.
Okay.
Okay. But what I would like for you to decide, because in order to keep me straight in case something comes up, I need you to sign. I am going to sign that I have released this information to you on Mr. Thomas. But I need your local address, and I need a photo ID to attach to this as well.
Okay.
Okay? So that's all. And if you want to peruse it...
In fact, you actually should have my photo ID.
No, that's for downstairs.
Okay.
I have nothing to do with that downstairs. So if you will give us your...
make a copy.
Yeah, your ID and everything.
Now, who is going to get the copy of my ID?
That is kept in a personal file, in a file. All of the information, just like yours, is kept confidential.
Okay.
It's kept confidentially in this office.
All right, and I'm going to stop it right there because, as John will tell you, I also want to bring up, before I bring John on here, John, you can hear him in the background. He did receive a letter, like I said, from the Department of Law, and in that letter, I want to read this paragraph. I agree with you that the Georgia Open Records Act does not require a citizen to meet with an elected official as a condition to reviewing documents, nor does the Act require disclosure of a home address, telephone number, driver's license number, or investigator license to do so. The mayor's office may have overstepped its authority if it required this information. And yet, John, you have her on record saying she requested this information. What happened after she came straight out and told you your information was confidential, was going to stay in her office?
She ran down the hallway and informed Tony Thomas, the man who I'd requested information on, and gave him copies of my address, gave him copies of everything. And since then, I've had threatening letters. Tony Thomas has tried to obtain video of my daughter, who at the time was 11, when we went up to, we washed some sleeping bags after a camping trip, and happened to be next door to Tony Thomas's alderman office, and he attempted to obtain surveillance video from the business that included video of my 11-year-old daughter. So she has personally, through her dishonesty, her violation of the law, has personally placed my family at risk. And I attempted to go forward with an ethics complaint against her. And
go ahead.
Wow. They didn't even have an ethics committee at the time. So they had to impanel an ethics committee to find out if they would even allow me to file an ethics complaint. The 3 members of the board consisted of 2 pastors who had backed her in her previous election and a lawyer from the law firm where the current city attorney is.
All right, so you had so going into this meeting, you already had the deck stacked against you.
I wasn't even at the table. I literally was not at the table. They sat around the table, talked to the city attorney.
Hold it. Stop right there a minute. You mean to tell me that you requested a review, and yet, because you were the complainant, you were not allowed to appear? Yes,
I was allowed to come to the meeting, but they had a pre-meeting to determine whether or not there was going to be an ethics committee meeting. If this even rose to the level, and I'll be honest with you, I have the recording of it.
No, I don't deny that, John, but what I'm asking is, when you went to the initial meeting again with these 3 people, and you had requested a ethics committee being formulated, you indeed were at that particular hearing, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Then, now, take it the next step. What happened while you were in the presence of these 3 people?
They determined there was not sufficient evidence to go forward with an ethics complaint.
Wait a minute. Even though you had the recording from the mayor herself?
I was never allowed to present the recording.
Why? Why were you not?
Because they determined that the mayor didn't do it. The 3 people who were appointed by the mayor determined that the mayor didn't do anything wrong.
Wait a minute. She says right out that the information you have given her is going to be confidential, will remain in her office. You have a letter from the Georgia Department of Law states that more than likely she already has violated that those procedures, yet this committee or this panel say, well, guess what? There's no evidence here. It astounds me that they didn't take this as evidence.
Here's the ironic thing. They go through this. They've already made their decision. And afterwards, they're like, well, Mr. Perry, would you like to address the ethics committee before we determined to do what we've already determined to do? Now, and I stood up and I admit, I looked down and I was like, this is a joke. You guys have already made your decision of what you're going to do. And they made that decision based on, quite frankly, the city attorney at the time who represented them at the ethics committee lied about what the letter from Stephen Ritter, is who you read that he was works in the Attorney General's office. Stephen Ritter, she totally misquoted what he said. She also said that, well, we got in touch with their office and we didn't require anything that they don't require, which was another flat out lie. It was at that moment, I knew the city was corrupt, but it was that moment that I realized that in this city there is, it is so far beyond the pale. It is rotten from top to bottom.
All right, now you also, in your correspondences with me, you also brought up and I'm going to ask you exactly what the SPLOST is.
Okay. SPLOST, or SPLOST, is the Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax.
Okay. Now, what's that supposed to do?
Well, when I got into this, it kind of led me to everybody who had anything about kind of corruption in the city. While I originally started looking for Tony, they started coming to me. They started sending me emails. They started sending me evidence. And SPLOST came up for renewal in the fall of 2013. And I became involved at the grassroots level. I was working from everybody with the National Action Network to the local Tea Party were against SPLOST. This city, in particular, the management of the city, has so mismanaged the funds that basically our response was, listen, we're not necessarily even opposed to a sales tax instead of a property tax. What we are opposed to is the money that we have paid into this. And I have to check and make sure. I think that our county is the second longest continuous running SPLOST in Georgia. And we've got nothing to show. Well, very little. I'll correct that. Very little. There's been so much mismanagement of the funds that what we should have runs over budget and gets cut back on a continuous basis.
Correct me if I'm not mistaken here, but the mayor of a city must overlook where these expenses are going to as well. You know, I mean, simple yes or no. Is that is that true?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the mayor knows where this money is supposed to be, correct?
You would think so, yes.
All right. But it seems that, you know, with this fund, other things have gone on that you brought up. So go ahead and continue from where you left off.
Well, as we began opposing SPLOST, and like I say, this was really a unifying thing for the city of Savannah. I'm sorry to say it, but I think any city in the South or in America right now, we got to admit, we got to talk about the elephant in the room. There's racial tension. We had something that was uniting people from different political outlooks, from different ethnic groups, and they were working together in opposition for this. Rather than, I think that honestly, I thought it was a great golden opportunity for our mayor, who talks about wanting to be a uniter, to come out and say, we've heard your concerns. Let us address you, and let's see if we can go against your concerns and overcome your concerns. Instead, it went to racial demagoguery. I mean, absolute stuff printed in paper saying we should explode. You know, the blacks should oppose this simply because the Tea Party's in favor of it. And this is the same paper that the mayor and Al Scott, who's with the county, were saying, we urge you to vote yes. And it was so maddening to me to see something that was about fiscal responsibility and the fact that we've had mismanaged funds. Honestly, I'll use the word embezzled funds for years. And we're unable to get an accurate accounting because as long as SPLOST is open, there's no true audit that can be done, because they're like, oh, well, yeah, we've had expenditures go out because we anticipate XYZ amount of money coming in, so that's why you see this discrepancy here. As long as SPLOST is open, we cannot audit the books and properly say, okay, we're missing, all right, XYZ amount of money because we don't know where the money is.
Let me stop you right there. They're supposed, I don't care what municipality it is, they are supposed to keep a very accurate record of the expenditures. I don't care if it's right down to a damn paper clip.
Right.
But yet, you're saying that the money into this fund is disappearing. Hasn't the General Accounting Office, in Atlanta said, okay, hey, wait a minute here. Where is this money going? Hasn't anybody gone to them and said, look, we need a full accounting?
We have, but here's the issue that you run into. When you have something like SPLOST, it's a floating amount of money that comes in.
Well, floating or not, they still have to keep accounting.
Oh, yeah, you can make, I'm sure you understand, you can make, there's always two sets of books. You have one that you can make balance and, oh, look, we're looking good. Here's our books. We're balanced. And then you have, where is that money actually going?
Okay.
And it's where that money is actually going that is the issue. There's projects that run over. Okay, we know they run over. Nobody ever asked the question, why did it run over? Why did we overpay $20 million for this site? Where did that $20 million go? Why do we overpay for this building that we find out needs a new roof and we overpaid for it to begin with? Why do we purchase a land that we're supposed to use for a new police department only to find out that we can't use it for a new police department? So now we overpaid for this land and we're going to sell it for about a tenth of what we have. It's this constant, and nobody asks, okay, where did that money go? Why did we overpay for it? Who owned it that we bought it from that now has that money?
You mean
that's why I use. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The thing is I can't understand is why the people in Savannah haven't seen this and have gotten irate about it and said, look, we want to know. This is our money. We want to know. Why hasn't the people in Savannah come up to the mayor and said, look, Mayor, you expect to get in office. We want to know.
Simple answer, bread and circuses.
All right, clarify.
Look at what the money was targeted for. Our biggest thing, our biggest line item on there was a new arena. We don't need a new arena. And honestly, if we focused on a plan, we would have been able to build a new arena by 2020 without passage of SPLOST had we really worked on a more balanced budget approach. But there's this constant drumbeat. One, they seek really to divide people, mostly along racial lines. We're going to promise you this. We're going to promise you all these things that's going to make life better. We're going to build you a new rec center. We're going to get, and it's the whole idea. You go back to Rome, ancient Rome. Now it operated on keeping the masses who were starving occupied by bread and circuses. So that's where all this, that's what keeps them in power is this. Well, yeah, maybe we didn't get you what we promised, but we're going to do something even better now. Not realizing that, with the downtown development, by nature, it's going to lead to higher property taxes as people's property values rise. So the very thing that they say is going to prevent is going to happen to the people who can least afford it.
Now, you made the contention that this is falling on racial lines. You want to clarify in what respect that's occurring?
Edmund Jackson in particular has made a career. Savannah does have a larger black population in the city itself. And when you have a low turnout, as opposed to, coupled with racial pandering, because for me, many issues are not black or white, they're green. That was when I was working with the leader of the national network, who I love to death. We disagree on things political, but I love her. She's the one who coined the phrase, it's not a white thing, it's not a black thing, it's a green thing, and that's our money. That was our message, but the mayor herself fear-mongered. There's no other word for it. Well, if you do this, you're going to lose your house, because if you don't pay your taxes, it's going to get sold on the courthouse steps. So you want to keep your house. So rather than do that, we should pass this sales tax. And if you don't, well, we know that the real reason the Tea Party doesn't want you to do that is because they don't like you. I have these op-eds that were published with no name attached in the same paper that Edmund Jackson is appealing to people to pass a SPLOST. It was absolutely ignored that the opposition to this was not racially motivated. The opposition was not. The push to pass it absolutely was. It was, we should vote for this simply because they're against it. And, will blacks vote on November 5th was the name of the op-ed. And that's in the same paper that Scott, which is Al Scott, and Jackson urged vote yes on SPLOST. So there was this cohesive assault. There was a lot of town hall meetings in black churches throughout Savannah. We're going to have a town hall meeting, and we're only going to let the black pastors know. And honestly, it broke my heart. It broke my heart to see this push to make this about race and not about fiscal responsibility and what's best, because the SPLOST doesn't just affect Savannah, it affects the entire county, Chatham County. There's not this push to say, how can we come together and find what we can agree on? And then we can argue about where we can't, but we need to find common ground. Instead, there was a move to the move to suppress the vote was not on those against it. The move to suppress the vote was for those who were in favor of passage of SPLOST. There was a lot of city money spent to tout SPLOST, to urge for the passing of a tax. There's a lot of city money spent, our taxpayer money spent to send out flyers encouraging people to vote yes to extend this tax. And it was very evident that we were up against a giant, and I don't think they honestly expected us to make it as close of a vote as it was. But in the end, we were outspent.
You know, the thing is, you've also brought up several times during our discussion, Al Scott, the county commissioner. How does he play into all this?
He's with the county commission, and he works a lot with just kind of pushing the, I hate to say it, the racial tension along with Edna Jackson. In this particular case with the SPLOST, I want to be clear, I've not had a lot of dealings with Al Jackson outside of SPLOST. And that was very evident, though. You know, every place he was on that event. And I believe he's the president also of the NAACP. And yet he's also the county commissioner, the head guy in the county commission. And it's, instead of being there is no voice of unity trying to say, hey, let's come together, white, black, brown, it doesn't matter. Let's come together and realize that we are one city, that we are one county, that we are in this together, that we need to stand shoulder to shoulder. Instead, it's been, well, you guys had your turn, we're going to have our turn. And when that's the mentality that's taken, well, for one, there shouldn't be an either side. But if there is a side, neither side wins, because it becomes this tit for tat. Well, you had yours, we're getting ours. And that makes it where any opposition, you're labeled a racist, you're labeled anything under the sun rather than a concerned citizen.
You know, the other thing I want to bring up here is, on Monday I had Murray Silver on, and he had brought up the fact that the ethnicity of Savannah itself, and as you pointed out, is leaning more towards the black community, and that the white community is indeed moving out of there. My question is, during your investigations, have you seen this occurring, and if so, who have you talked to in reference to trying to reverse this, or are they just more or less willing to leave it stay and not do anything?
I think that there are some people out there that that are willing to take a stand. Dietrich Leggett, I know he is running for city alderman, and he is somebody who he really strives. And it's not even like he has a foot in both camps. He's just somebody who stands and says, "I'm for Savannah. I'm from Savannah. I'm a native of Savannah. Yeah, I'm black, but that doesn't simply define me. That means I can understand something." I'll be honest, there's things that he understands that I simply can't, because I didn't grow up the way he can. But because I can listen to him, because we can talk to each other rather than talk at each other, we're able to really talk and I think find common ground. We've many times said, Alicia, you would think that Alicia, with the director of the National Action Network, there are things that we disagree on very strongly. I love her to death, but there are things we just disagree on. But we have been able to set that aside and say, what can we agree on? And there are leaders throughout the community. You have Beverly Trotter, who is the director of Savannah Youth City. I don't think it matters what color you are. Our kids matter. And so we've been able to come together and say, what can we do to save the youth of our city? And I see that. I see, not just. I have seen Murray take an interest, and I'm excited to see that. It's nice to have a mayoral candidate that acknowledges the problems, but doesn't let our own racial identities or anything like that determine how he's going to approach them. I see that in people like O.C. Welch, who has really reached out to try and stop crime by putting his own money up there. So there's people that are out there, but too often they're targeted and marginalized, so people can stand next to him and say, I'm like this guy. But what they're really doing behind the scenes, and sometimes not so much behind the scenes, is working to divide.
And I noticed that myself when I've been doing my own research about that very issue. Now you also brought up something else that was very interesting. When an individual, and I'm sure this is exactly how it is in Georgia and in Savannah. If you're running for an office to represent a very precise constituency, you have to reside within the district you're seeking election for. So I am assuming, and you can correct me if I'm mistaken, if you are running for the mayor of Savannah, you must therefore reside within the district to run for office. Now, you brought up the fact that, guess what? The mayor herself, somehow, the books got bent so she could run for mayor.
Yes, her residence where she paid her taxes, where it was listed as her primary taxes, was on Wilmington Island. And that was just kind of, oh, well, that's just a clerical thing. It's just a house we have out there. And it's a problem when, if you heard on the audio that you played at the beginning, the very person who made that final determination is the clerk of council, Diane Reese, that Edna Jackson had already served with and been around for 13 years, as her own words stated. So you have somebody with a 13-year relationship determining the viability of the candidacy of our mayor and disallowing others. And it's to say that our clerk of council is corrupt is an insult to the word corruption. There have been numerous, there's the thing, there's been numerous news reports of her using city funds while she was on full disability. She's at home, she's not coming into job, but yet she was well enough to take paid trips on behalf of the city. And I don't know if you can hear it, I'm putting air quotes around the on behalf of the city, because it was brought out in some news reports that she wasn't even where the meetings were supposed to be. Yet she still sits in her place of where she's at and makes the final determination. That the entire final determination, there's no say, there's no appeal, there's nothing else, is the clerk of council, and she's absolutely corrupt. I mean, she has been, if I started getting into everything that I have on her, we simply don't have time. I mean, it's that much. There's ethics complaints. There's unsavory work environment. She absolutely belittles the people. There's been using the city account to purchase personal items, then to reimburse the city to circumvent paying sales tax. And this is, when you start going down the list of things like this over and over, her accounting of where the money goes for her trips, there's entire years missing. There are entire years missing. And you ask, where's the audit? I'd love to know. I would love to see an audit of the clerk of council's office, because you have an office with 5-6 people in it that was spending nearly $1,000 a month on snacks and drinks from Sam's.
Whoa, wait a minute. They're spending $1,000 every month, $12,000 of the taxpayers' money for snacks, and yet, I mean, how ridiculous is this getting here?
Well, you have to have your Starbucks coffee, apparently.
I wish I could.
Yeah, I've been in the corporate world where you had a vending machine that you paid your 75 cents for, and you got your cup of coffee. Where we, as the taxpayer, her Christmas cards that she sends out. Now, that one's a little bit of a gray area. Maybe we're going to argue that the clerk of council, but maybe then if we're going to buy Christmas cards, we should not buy the ones with gold foil from out of state, but get with a local printing company and have them be the ones that provide. If we're even going to buy Christmas cards on behalf of the clerk of council, which I'm like, if you want to send out Christmas cards, send out your own Christmas cards. I shouldn't be paying $500 a year for the cards and postage, so you can send out these, super over-the-top Christmas cards on the city dime. And this is, and then I have, you can do an open records request for computer usage, which is really fun, and find out that she's in her office playing video gambling for hours on end a day.
And whose money is that?
I don't think that it's necessarily a pay to play one, but she's up at work and she's on her computer playing mahjong or whatever she's playing.
Yeah, so you have this individual who handles this office doing nothing, collecting a paycheck, squandering taxpayer money, and then just to avoid getting caught, I'll send it back. This way I don't have to pay taxes. To me, it sounds like she thinks she's got this holier-than-thou attitude.
Well, it's funny that because we haven't talked about this at all. It's funny that you use this holier-than-thou attitude. She actually it has brought people into her office and belittle them because she doesn't think they're being a very good Christian on the job.
Wait, whoa.
If they would just listen to her...
Isn't she being hypocritical?
Oh, yeah. It's so bad that there's been numerous people who have quit. And they just get to the point, though, where she's so entrenched, she's such a staple downtown that nobody... This is the problem with our corruption in Savannah. It's not all that everybody's a sexual predator like Tony. It's everybody does something. So you have nowhere to go to get somebody to find Elliot Ness to stand up and fight corruption.
Why can't you get Capitol Hill involved? Why can't you get the Department of Justice involved? From what I'm hearing, this is rampant. This is going on, and I find it hard to believe that no one filed a complaint with the DOJ. No one's filed it. It seems to me, you can correct me if I'm mistaken, but no one's filed it even with Atlanta.
We have.
Okay, so what happened?
Sam Mullins has been out here a lot. I don't want to speak for him. I don't know why he doesn't come in with a dustbuster and just suck up the dirt. But I can say I had a friend of mine who is a FBI agent that we were talking, and his response was, John, when you have corruption this big, the fear that's out there sometimes, and he wasn't specifically speaking of Savannah, but he's speaking of what he'd seen. He goes, you get this fear sometimes when the corruption is so rampant. What if we came in and cleaned? For crying out loud, our former chief of police, just went to prison, or is going to be going to prison, was convicted of gambling, of racketeering, essentially. That's the chief, and it's all the way to the bottom. What would happen to our police force if they really did come in and clean it up? And everybody who's corrupt, because not to speak in defense of Willie Lovett, but honestly, what they got him for, it's pretty tic-tac when you compared to some of the other things. We had, we have our current city manager, Stephanie Cutter. Her son was a convicted felon for drug trafficking. Somehow he was managed to be hired by the police department, Savannah Chatham Metro is for the Impact Savannah, by a man named Terry Enoch, overruled the fact that the guy's a convicted felon, hired him, and honestly, that led to a lot of the tension with the chief. I don't want to say it's the only reason that he was ran out, but it definitely contributed. When they realized that he wasn't going to cover their corruption, I think there was a decision made to expose his. And Terry Enoch was the one who made the call to hire Stephanie Cutter's son. He is now the chief of police for the Savannah Chatham School District.
Wait a minute. Whoa, hold it here. Hold. Stop right there a minute.
Yes.
You have a convicted felon
Mm-hmm.
in charge of a
He wasn't in charge. He was hired by Impact Savannah.
Okay, but I mean, still,
right.
he was hired. But I mean, even though it is an outside agency, but what I'm saying is you have a convicted felon and in charge of a law enforcement organization for schools.
No, sir. He the man who hired the felon.
Okay.
Is now in charge of this.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry for the confusion there.
No. I'm glad you clarified it because a convicted felon cannot be working in law enforcement. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, and buts because if you're in law enforcement, you'd be carrying a gun, and I don't know how, and I don't think it is in the schools, but still, he cannot be in that type of an environment to begin with.
Right, and where Enoch hired Cutter's son was not to put him where he's out there carrying a gun. That was not the issue at all. But
it was still the issue. You got a convicted felon.
Correct.
Okay,
correct.
That's what I'm trying to get at here. You still have the issue of a convicted felon,
and he circumvented the chief when he did so. And at the time, then Chief Lovett obviously was not very happy about it because there'd been a prior incident that he was caught unaware of as well. And when he blew a gasket, I guess is the best way to say it, the members of the city council, the remark was made that chief's got to go. And this is things that, when I say that the corruption runs top to bottom, Stephanie Cutter's husband was also pulled over by a police officer. He jumps out of his vehicle and starts yelling, Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? I mean, who cares who you are? You were just pulled over. How about we get through this detainment and we figure out what's going on?
Right.
And that's the mindset. When you talked about the holier than thou from the clerk of council, Diane Reese, that permeates to every single elected official. It cuts across all racial lines. It cuts across all party lines. There is this belief that we're above it all. You guys just need to shut up and let us take care of things.
Nobody's above the law. I don't care who the hell you are. Nobody is above the law. And the thing is you brought up the fact that you had spoke with a former agent of the FBI, and I'm sorry I cut you off about that. Why did he say that bringing down all this corruption is nearly going to be impossible? I mean, can you say it in about 30 seconds?
Yeah, who's going to police? If we remove all the corrupt people and everybody's corrupt, who are you left with? If we removed every corrupt person from our city government right now, we'd have 9 empty seats.
All right, well, 9 seats are easy to fill. I mean, you get responsible people in there to handle it. I mean...
And we wouldn't have a clerk of council.
Well, at least you'd probably get somebody. I see where you're getting at. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, once we get rid of them, they're at the top. Where else is the corruption? Where else is the nepotism? Where else do we have people getting hired simply because they're part of a political party, or not even a political party because they're part of a club? And it's. Sometimes when we look at this problem of corruption in Savannah in particular, I I think that it's no surprise that we only have one person who's officially said they're running for mayor, because who wants this job?
Well,
You know?
I mean, somebody's got to be, and pardon my expression here. I'm just a small, I'm just a journalist, and I want to get to the fact. Somebody's got to have the balls to say, okay, enough is enough. This is what's going on in our city, and stand up against this. I mean, why hasn't someone said enough? I am going to get the balls. I'm going to go up against this bitch and her administration and take them down.
I think that the simple statement of the nail that stands up gets hammered. I can speak from my personal experience. I had a mayor lie to me and personally place my family at great risk. And when I tried to go through the legal remedy of submitting an ethics complaint, there was not even an ethics panel impaneled at the time. They had to impanel one, so they cherry pick who they want, and that was my legal remedy to solve my problem with my civil government. Was no remedy. Well, there's really no violation here. I never even got a chance. It's funny because the reporting in Savannah contributes to it.
Right.
There are some very good reporters that try to get the story out.
But it's suppressed, it seems.
But it's the press in general, because Savannah survives on tourism. And who's going to want to bring their family to a city that is, honestly, we're on a path to become Detroit, but I think far worse. When we have such rampant corruption that has been ignored and overlooked for so long.
Wow.
The pill that we have to take, the medicine we have to take, it's not an aspirin. It's surgery. I mean, and it's severe. Hey guys, I don't know if you're going to make it through this, but if you don't do this, you're definitely not going to make it.
Well, we're going to have to unfortunately leave it right there for today, John. And I want to bring you back on because you brought up a couple other very interesting things that I want to talk about in our next get together here. I want to do it in 2 weeks. Can you make yourself available?
Yes. Yeah, I'll make myself available.
All right, John. Hang on for just a second. Everybody else. You know what that means. It's time for me to get out of here. Stay tuned, because coming up here right after NPR News, Ed Till will be with you till 4 o'clock. Until tomorrow, 6 a.m., this is Bob Williams. Take care of yourselves.